This is not a story about scoring waves. It's not a surf rock clip of perfect waves, not about ripping maneuvers or tons of spray in the water. It's not about pretending to explore a secret spot or editing a highlight reel. Instead, this is a story about patience, about slowly growing familiar with a new spot, about managing expectations I have of myself with the conditions the ocean provides. It's about overcoming frustration and dealing with fear. It's a story about growing my comfort zone and about gaining something back I had lost. It's my story of the last swell I surfed. The backstory started 10 weeks ago, when I came to this island not to find anything, but rather to get away from everything for a while. Back home, I grew tired of much of surf culture lately, and it had been impacting my surfing. I surfed less and freedived more. I didn't surf all summer, and I didn't miss it once. It's hard to say it out loud, because I know it's embarrassingly privileged and equally unrelatable as a surfer who started quite late in life and made it their career shortly after, but I had started to grow tired of surfing. After 10 years in the home I voluntarily chose exclusively for the waves, I found myself with a strong urge to get away, paired with the opportunity to go, and so I left. To be somewhere in nature, in the forest. If I get to surf, okay. If I get to freedive, good. And if I could have one wish come true, it would be to surf my 9'6" gun at least once. Right since I started surfing, what I have always loved most was the power. Feeling those mountains of water under my feet and gliding on their energy. And this board is made exactly for that. I was hardly surfing before I left, and I hadn't surfed that board in a full year, but I decided to take a leap of faith and just bring it with me. Fast forward to last week. After 10 weeks here, I was already seeing me bring my gun all the way back home again without it ever having touched the water. I had paid a few €100 and a lot of time on the phone with the airline about it in the process. But I wasn't going to be too hard on me. That's just what it is if you're new in a place. And that's just what it is with bigger waves. On top of that, it took me a while to get out of a rut and into the rhythm here, to understand the surf forecast and just get used to the fact that it's not nearly as consistent as back home. And at the same time, it's mostly heavier waves with difficult access. I knew it was going to be harder than in the place I've surfed in for 10 years. But to be fully honest, I didn't expect it to be so much harder. But then this swell showed up on the forecast. It looked quite perfect. The energy was supposed to pick up during the session from 2 to 5,000. So my 7-foot board would be too small, which meant my 9'6" would finally get in the water. I got all my gear ready and slept terribly the night before. I was nervous. I still don't know the spot well, and you can't really see the waves from the shore. It's a half-kilometer paddle just to get there, and I was all by myself. But I felt something calling me out there. I strangely felt like I owed this to myself, and so I went. It was a beautiful, calm session, and there wasn't really a reason to be so nervous about it. The swell didn't fully enter into the spot I was at, and I played it super safe. I spent a lot of time sitting and waiting, looking at which waves closed, letting most pass by, and only choosing the ones practically without a wall. I didn't fall or get caught inside once. But I didn't know that the night before, or in the morning when I put my gear on, or when I jumped in the water. But I went regardless. I will remember this session as the day I paddled out of the harbor and into the open ocean, all by myself, all for myself. And somehow, the beauty and the power of the waves that day reignited something. Something I had almost forgotten, something I had almost lost in all the noise.
Ok, tipo, os 7 segundos também fecham totalmente. Depois eu perguntei tipo, essas maiores, tipo, que parece que estão a fechar, fecha no inside. Ele falou, pelo menos eu não vou.
After the session, I paddled half a kilometer back into the harbor. And the next day, I did exactly the same again. And then again the third day. This is not a story about scoring waves. It's a story of gratitude, of being humble in the face of nature, of respecting its powers and getting closer to them. And I don't know where my story of surfing will lead, but I'm sure it won't be a straight line. But for now, I will enjoy this chapter I'm in right now about how I fell back in love with surfing.